Hi and welcome everyone. This is Varley at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Friday, November 29th, 2024. This is show number 200 called Look Up, Cloaking Craft in Florida and Australia. Highlights from January through July 2021, Part 2. So I'm doing a little recap series here, kind of taking the best of the best or the highlights of my first longer format sky shows. There are about 198 of them. And I want to kind of divide those initial ones up into about 4 parts. Just kind of really, again, shining a light on the kind of best of the best, if you will. Just to condense things a bit, especially if you're new to my channel. This is a great place to kind of start and get, familiar with what I do here. And then, if you want to go back and dig into each individual show, there's a lot of great things in those too that I can't highlight. That are well worth going through each show and watching, at least in my opinion. Anyway, if you're new. If you're returning, you may have already seen some of my earlier shows. Thank you to all of you, whether new or returning, for any amount of time that you spend here. And I never say on my videos the old hit this and this kind of routine, because I don't want to program that in the mind. I think you know what I mean. But obviously, if you feel so moved and want to get the word out, you know what to do, and it does help get the word out and circulate this. Otherwise, no obligations, come enjoy, that's all I ask. My goal here is just to point out some pretty wondrous things happening in the skies above us. Anywhere in the world, anywhere you go, you're going to see some of these things. I teach you how to study patterns and how to find these things. I invite all of you just to go out even 5 minutes a day and really study the clouds, really watch for things. Spend a good 5 minutes not looking at your device unless you're taking a photo, and just really stay there focused on the clouds. You're going to start to see some patterns. You're going to start to see some things happening that kind of defy light and wind physics, if you will. And especially if you start taking some pictures, you might start to see things popping up in them, things that are symmetrical. I'll use an example here on this cover slide. If you follow my cursor here, look down at this. This is a perfect circle. These are like shields or other things. I'll wait till we get to the slide where I cover this. This is a craft, cloaking in the skies. This is a pretty extraordinary example of one that started morphing and showing up over time, over a 20-minute span, staying the same altitude and location, which is kind of impossible for a natural organic cloud. But we'll get into the detail of that coming up. So first, let's just get into maybe also some of the words, wisdoms, and spirit of the day highlights from my earlier shows, and then we'll get on into the craft and other sky anomalies. All right, here we go. So this is a cover slide from one of my earlier shows. I don't want to spend too much time on it other than to point out that this is some type of symmetrical object. You can see a straight line here and here. It's actually even like diamond shaped, maybe even clustered with some other shapes. This might be independent, forming an overall shape. But it absolutely, you see the trajectory of this thing coming out of this other bigger cloud mass, which looks very strangely artificial. We have like a, triangular form at the end. We have straight lines parallel. That's not a natural cloud. We have a very pointed object here, with straight lines. So there's a lot of objects. If I say craft, I'm saying cloaking craft or cloaking objects. Certainly, some of these are going to be hard to tell if it's an actual flying craft or maybe some instrumentation that does something. So when I use that nomenclature, that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is just an interesting visual. Also back here, we have things that aren't as pronounced up in the foreground, but back here I can see like a stick-like element coming straight across, another one back here. So those are presumably parallel to each other, which means those are like tips of a bigger object cloaking beyond. And we also see weird little solid objects that tell us more is cloaking back in the scene. It's a little fuzzy overall. Sometimes when I'm using this, it's just all of these are taken with a camera phone. Some shots you'll notice coming up in the show are going to be more clear than others. When things get fuzzed out like this, there is a certain technology that's emitted from these craft that kind of fuzz things out or make things look choppy. And so that's just something to notice as we get further into the show. But most of it is more clear. All right, now this is coming from the words, wisdom, and spirit of the day, one of the pages. As I mentioned, there's one pretty much, or if I didn't mention, I'll mention now. There's one of these at the beginning of every show, and they include anything from nature observations, maybe some talk about crystals, ancient wisdoms, and also maybe just showing things from nature or in the sky. So this one, this particular little passage I just want to read, it comes from, it's an excerpt from ya-native.com is the source image, where it came from. And I just want to read it aloud here. During a time when certain stones knew and spoke your name, they would be placed in your medicine pouch. These ancestor stones became your guide because they were here first, even before life, and possess ancient knowledge. And I wanted to pair this saying, beautiful saying, and wisdom, with some rough crystals that I had of my own. I was just trying to represent like the four elements, fire, water, water down here, a little bit of earth and the ether, and air. And they happen to be labradorite, chrysoprase, blue calcite, red or chestnut jasper, and amazonite. So I invite you, whenever I mention a crystal name, to look further on your own, dig around, especially if you do a search for healing properties and then put the name of the stone in there. You'll just be amazed at what these crystals can do if you're not already familiar. And even if you are, just a little reminder, refresher to see what they can do perhaps. All right, let's keep going. One more. I think this is, I only put a couple wisdom pages up front. I do want to read this one too. It's something that's coming up for a lot of people, because when we talk about cloaking craft in the skies and sky anomalies and crystals, and before you know it, we're on to the subject also of cryptids. I'm not a fan of that word, but anything to do with like Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yowie. Yowie's the name of Sasquatch in Australia, and there are many other names. There's Yeti for ones that are more in like the snow environments. But anyhow, I just wanted to bring this up too, because this is a beautiful passage that happens to be from the Sasquatchy people, but about the main elements, the four elements plus ether. And I put other here as well, because I have a feeling there's other categories that we don't even know about yet. But I did redraft the images for this. I created these symbols because I was not quite happy with just the traditionally accepted kind of symbols showing triangles, either inverted or upright. So what I did was I kept the circle for spirit and ether, but I changed them up for air, water, fire, and earth. Perhaps you would like to make some too. Create some of your own symbols. What does each element feel like to you, and what symbol would you give it? All right. In the meantime, let's get into it. Message from the Sasquatchy people. Yes, the Sasquatch people, or Bigfoot, or Yowies. Okay, this is drafted or attributed to Standing Elk, Golden Eagle Chief, Chief Black Spotted Horse. And I'm just taking an excerpt from a longer passage, so here it goes. The elemental brothers and sisters are of these essences. They are purity in form. They are single. They are true. They are unpolluted. They understand that they are life keepers. Learn from soil and stone. Learn from river and ocean. Learn from fire and lightning. Learn from wind and breath. They are so close to you that you cannot remember who they are, and yet not one action that you take could you do without them. These sacred element peoples will restore you. And I put my own little note down here. Be sure to notice, know, and feel the difference between what is natural in nature versus artificial or man-made tech, or caused especially regarding cloud, sun, fires, lightning, and floods. As we know, and it's coming out even in the mainstream news, if you will, all about, the artificial tech that is absolutely capable of creating, flooding and everything that I mentioned here. Anyway, I'm going to move along for now so we have time to really cover everything. Okay, so we're going to get into the cover image. Now, this is the title slide in the actual show. Now, this was on July 4th, 4th of July, Independence Day, all that good stuff. I'm just bringing this up because I found it pretty funny that this is kind of the first time a cloaking craft fully materialized and fairly clearly in front of my eyes over a 20-minute span, and that it came on, it's not lost on me, the joke about July 4th and all the cheesy and kind of, fear-mongering kind of movies like Independence Day and all that, showing these big bad aliens coming and attacking everybody and blowing everything up. No, that's not your typical, quote-unquote extraterrestrial. This is, a benevolent force that allowed me to see this in this moment. Why? How do I know? You go by your feeling. How are you ever going to know if you look up in the skies and see if it's friend or foe? Yes, some foes exist, but not to the extent that is, kind of blown out of proportion in some of these movies. You're going to know by the feel of it. So it's either going to feel euphoric, like a euphoria, and you're just looking like, oh my gosh, I'm so joyful to see this thing. That is so awesome. I've had that happen. Or this one was a little more neutral. I'm like, what? But it's still really cool. At no case did I get an impression from this like, oh my God, run for the hills, I better go inside or I'm going to get blown up. No, not at all. Now, I have had that happen maybe a couple of times, 2, maybe 3, in the last 6 years of doing this day in and day out and watching the skies at all hours. And so I'm telling you, just, that's my own account, that I can tell that there's either way more benevolence or neutrals out there than anything that's like, crazy, scary stuff, right? All right, so anyway, we're going to get into this, but I just wanted to show you that the overall title is Cloud Cruiser. So I'm going to show you, this is where that Cloud Cruiser was sitting. It's a 20-minute morphing sequence. I have the timestamps up in the upper right-hand corner. This happened in the morning. It was a beautiful, well, fairly clear morning without chemtrails all over the place or chemical-filled trails. And I just was kind of doing my scan like I invited everyone out there to do. Just take 5 minutes, in the morning or in the afternoon, and really just kind of do a 360, turn around, look up at the skies in all directions. I usually start with the east. It was just what I felt to do. And then, look to the north and to the west and to the south, however you want to do it. But make sure you take a nice full 360 and stay out there, at least 5 minutes and start to notice if things start changing. Why that's important is this example is, case in point of why that's important to do it and to be out there. So this is over 20 minutes. I started to see this, and it didn't look like much, but it did look strange. It was very low in altitude. See the trees? We're not talking really, excessively tall trees. And it happened very low and very noticeable, and it stayed fairly fixed. And then over time, here's with a little enhancement. When I say enhanced photos, you'll see maybe off to the right, I'll have it either is going to say original photo or enhanced photo. And that just simply means that I've taken the existing photo, and all I've done is upped or lowered attributes of the photo like contrast, color saturation, brightness, things like that. And then the only other thing I've done is maybe, put the tags to bring your attention somewhere or like a timestamp. Okay? But I haven't added anything in per se or removed anything from the photo. Okay? So anyway, I'll go back one step. So here's just the original. And now I've tweaked it a little, the attributes, so we could better see what's going on. Now we start to see these interesting grooves down by C, start to see like a little hole and weird things happening along the perimeter. And I see like little holes and things that look very rigid, straight lines. So I thought, this looks like a cloaking craft because there's some very, telltale signs that we're dealing with some rigid structure. But I thought that was all I was going to see. I thought, oh, that's just it. Okay, they'll form that and show me enough of that cloaking, that there's cloaking craft there, and then move on. Because a lot of times when you're observing the skies and seeing the cloaking craft pop out of the clouds or form, they'll show you just kind of the form for a second and then fade away. So, if you kind of like look and look away and look back, you might have missed it type of thing. That's why I say really have your eyes on the skies, where you're really studying consistently for like a 5-minute minimum period, and you start to see some beautiful things come out, emerge, go away, and patterns forming. Anyway, I'm going to move in now on this right-hand side where you say 8.1, and we just see this weird texture. That's pretty inexplicable as far as if you're going to say that's an organic cloud. Organic cloud doesn't do that. And then we start to see a straight line forming with a point, Again, those are kind of telltale signs that we're dealing with a rigid structure, geometries. Again, we start to see a right angles here. These look like little tabs, like maybe metallic things. So it starts to get real interesting. So then we're going to go to the left-hand side, if you will, of this overall craft. Look at B3, we start to see a pyramidal form or triangle popping up out of here. And then we start to see these look very systematic. These grooves look engineered. So again, the way things are moving on this thing, it's like it can't be explained away as organic or natural cloud. So now, again, same place, it hasn't moved anywhere. These are those, grooves at the front. I'm calling this the front or the bow because I'm calling this overall thing a craft. So the bow, the back is the stern, and then the fins, this would be the left side or the port side, and the right side or the starboard side would be over here. But anyway, this really was shaping up to look like some type of land speeder, if you will, from like the Star Wars movies. But it just kept forming, and it kept staying in the same place. And again, we're going to move through 20 minutes where it's just staying there. So here's different level of contrast. I took the color out to better see like these grooves. Like those are machined. I mean, that's intelligent design, no question. And then we start to see little bits and pieces flying around like little companion things or objects. And then again, it's holding its form, but it's just, morphing. So let's keep going. Now we're going to look at the right-hand side again, down at this, what I was calling a fin, because there's like a divot there, right? So we see that these are holes, structured holes, which would not in any way, shape, or form appear in like a natural or organic cloud. So we're going to keep looking at the other left side of this thing, and those are those grooves. Look how perfect they are in parallel. It's definitely structure in there, okay? And then this starts to do this. So again, it's looking more and more formed. We have what looks like an observation deck, like a big window, and there's a little decorative element or something, right? Maybe it's a functional element right there. And then what really caught my attention is we have perfect circles, so it looks like a shield is mounted to the side of this thing. And so we're going to keep going. There you go. See, with contrast, we see this opens up a little more. Maybe there are windows in there too for people to observe out, if you're on this thing. And again, here's just like what I'm calling an observation deck, or like the bridge, perhaps. And then look at this shield. Look at it sticking out. That is a perfect curve with shadow. There's even like a triangular insignia that I think shows up better in another slide or two. There's also some curves here too, so it looks like these things wrap around, this thing. Then we've got, again, like this wing, I'll call it, or fin, and there's a perfect circle here. So, and we got these grooves, which could be vents or something decorative element, hard to say. But it comes to a point, and look how beautifully layered it is. So anyway, I was pretty amazed that I was allowed to see this, that it presented itself like this. So I know this is a little bit mappy, but this would be the bridge. This is curved. It's a symmetrical element. It's got, intelligent shape and design to it. This is like the little emblem or something conical, at the center point of this thing. And then we have, perfect curve. And again, you can start to see it's got a triangle on it. Let's see if we can pick anything else. I think I'll leave it at that and just have a look at it yourself too, see if you see anything else in here. I did put a question back at the time. I just said, note, I do not know the answer to this, but I'm going to present the question. What is item D, and where I have D.1, above? What is this thing? Okay. I put down, is it just craft ID, like an emblem? Is it like a shield with the emblem on it? Is it a radar dish? Is it an energy shield generator or something that powers it? Is it a cloaking material generator? Does this do something and modulate frequencies and create the smoke that goes around this thing? Or allow it to, like, quote-unquote, materialize out of smoke? Is it a cloaking device? Is it a sonic and or laser device? Is it like weaponry that shoots something out of here? I don't know. Is it a data collector or like a galactic lifesaver, if you will, if somebody goes spacewalking and, I don't know, it can magnetically pull you back? I don't know. Is it like an air filter, a navigational beacon, a scanner? What do you think it is? I just kind of emptied my head on what could that possibly be. If it's a side view mirror, I'll laugh. I didn't put that down, but see what you think it is. All right, I'm just kind of removing some of the color, and just again, you can just see how perfect that is. But we'll move along. So here we're going to recap the morphing sequence, just pulling more toward thumbnail size so you can see it at a glance. So we started off with this. I just thought, that's interesting. That's not a natural cloud. And then I looked back after scanning around at the other views in the sky, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. It's still in the same place, and now it's filled up? What's going on? And then I look again at the end of the sequence, and then it looks like a speeder. It looks like a craft. I was, blown away happily, like, to see that. Pretty amazing. All right, now we're going to move on to a totally different show. So this was the cover of another one where it was sunset looking west, and there's some type of craft or craft piggybacking on another one. But what really got my attention is look at these. These are like tow cables or something, and there's like some other kind of craft here with like, it looks like a indentation, like a perfect circle, and there's a perfect triangle sitting over here. So we know it's some type of craft and objects. That even looks like a little like a circle, it's a circular form sticking out. So what the heck is this thing, or things, because it looks like multiple different craft forming just to make kind of a composition. Is that for my benefit? Do they know people are standing on the ground and observing, and so they come up with kind of creative ways of making a picture for us? I don't know. But it looks like maybe some object is towing something. Your guess is as good as mine. What do you think is happening in that scene? All right, so we're going to look at the overall scene. So if you look in the lower right-hand corner, that's kind of the smaller version of the image I just showed you, which maybe it's easier to pick some things out. So I just did screenshots. So you're going to see my little arrow cursor here too. So yeah, that was that clear triangle. And then this is like a dome-like thing. I mean, really wild-looking stuff with these like, you know, what do I want to call these, like these sticks connected to this, you know? Or is it towing it, or this is just how it's attached to this other bigger craft? This whole thing comes down to a point, but I really think this is a separate craft piggybacking on another cloaked, pointed elliptical craft, maybe. But see what you think. So upper left-hand corner starts with the original. It just looked weird. To the right, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Lower left is the original. Things were looking weird, so then I did a little more enhancement moving up to the upper left. You start to see stuff pop out that seems solid, so I kept on going with the enhancement process, upping more, you know, contrast, brightness, color saturation, playing around with the levels. So then this darker, more solid object emerged in that process. And then this thing in the front hasn't fully morphed yet, and now it has a pipe end, you know, it's like a pipe. And then we go down, you know, to the lower right, and we start to see something else emerging over time. Very, very interesting what was going on in the scene. See what you think is happening there. Here's one more view to look at it without the text. So it looks like a spherical thing happening here off to the end, and also this whole thing. Just very perplexing. But I'll leave this for you in your own time to check it out further. This is definitely dimensional, though. We got like shadow, and this thing's popped up. You know, pretty wild looking. Alright, this is another case of looking to the west, and this is a very large scale thing happening off into the horizon. And so I guess I did a little different on this scene. Okay, so the original's in the lower left, and then we're going to go up to see a little more progression, to the right to see even more, and we'll come back down to the lower left corner here, and we just see some very weird activity that does not look like that is a normal cloud. So I'm calling this a cloaking craft, and it's very choppy. I call that kind of staccato cloud, and to me that's like a cloaking method, or they can send out some type of pulse out, some type of energy to kind of interfere with the camera. But look at this thing. So we're zooming in, the lower right hand corner is zooming in on this part. So something, you know, rigid is happening. You know, it's a very straight line at the bottom. This looks absolutely engineered. And see what you think is happening in that scene. Here we zoom in a little bit more. It looks like a wedge-shaped craft. It's very solid. It looks like a right triangle. Elongated right triangle is sitting here on top of something else. Maybe this is like a platform or just another kind of ship, and it's just piggyback travels on it. See what you see in that scene. Alright, this is now looking off to the horizon here. And I just saw, again, this looked too structured to just be haphazard clouds. These fit neatly, you know, if you pull them all up together, would fit neatly together. And it's kind of reminding me of that craft that's on the cover. You know, it was kind of forming that overall similar shape. Something independent is floating up here. So we look to the right with more enhancement. We see straight lines coming to points. And again, it's like puzzle pieces. That doesn't happen with natural clouds. And something up here that very much looks like an independent little craft traveling along with maybe like a little vapor trail, or it looks like a little object flew off of it. Maybe a sensor, something to collect data, who knows. Okay, so we're going to look at that little piece up above, and it looks like this. So look at, there are holes in it. There's like very rigid holes in it, and another little piece floating above. We look to the right, we see it again. So look at how straight this line is in the lower right hand corner, or even the lower left hand corner. Look how straight that is. And then we have lines, angles, symmetry, you know. That's hardened, engineered components. So it's absolutely cloaking craft. Now I expanded the scene a little bit more to cover what's going on to the right of that little floating craft above. So actually the scene below is the original, and above is with some enhancement. So I just saw weird stuff flying off. It looked very linear down here, like a very long stick. So with enhancement, we see that it is, and that's not a natural cloud. And these little things each have symmetry to them too. So I think these are each little cloaking craft, and that's a slightly bigger one. And I think we blow up, we go in closer. So here I even start to see kind of like a disc-like thing that looks like it's mounted on the top of this thing. We start to see maybe back fins that would be symmetrical, although it looks like an independent cloaking craft there at the tip. And a lot of these things, sometimes it's like a solid cloaking craft in of its own right, and sometimes there are little piggyback craft that start to form some of the symmetry, but yet they're independent parts. So, you know, the more we look at these things, the more we'll start to see and pick things apart if we see individual components or not. So again, this overall shape comes to a point, looks like kind of like a strange kind of cow catcher or something at the front of this thing. I don't know. But we've got elongated triangles going on down here. And again, this really skinny stick hitting into something bigger. Just really weird. All right, this is just showing an anomalous quote-unquote clouds. If I say quote-unquote clouds, I'm absolutely talking about artificially created cloud that is made as cloud cover for a lot of these hiding, cloaking craft. So the upper left-hand corner, I just see the original here. Looking at the sky, I'm like, this is not a natural cloud. What the heck is going on? With enhancement, I say there's a very solid object in here, and weird shapes with straight lines. Again, not natural cloud. You'll hear me say that all through the show. Upper right-hand corner, again, just a weird forming cloud, quote-unquote. And we look at it with enhancement. We start to see different color signatures, see little bright light points in there, and just nothing about this natural cloud. Lower left-hand corner, we see this massive thing, if you look at the scale of the trees in the foreground, that has starting to have symmetry, like that's the back end of a craft coming to a point to the front of the craft, with something floating over it. So we go to the lower right-hand corner, and we start to see solid object, actually overall solid object here, and an overall maybe solid object here, or again, this might be comprised of several, different kind of cloaking craft, but undeniably, two objects that aren't natural clouds. Okay, this is interesting. We'll start with the upper left-hand corner. To the naked eye, I just saw this, and then I think it got flipped. Yeah, and actually, no, sorry. I'm showing two different examples on this one. The left-hand side just shows when you start to see it, and it's just white. In other cases, you see some of these things, and with some sun, sun going down, quote-unquote, you start to see different colors illuminate on some of these things. Now this one I was pulling out as an example of this can't be a natural cloud because you have a crisscross of two totally different trajectories. And so it was just forming, this kind of pattern. Anyway, we're going to move along to the right. By contrast, this looks more created by something that's been engineered craft. Over here, these look more like natural, like the name of the show is Sky Sweep. They look like wisps to me, so maybe more of the elementals realm of things. So they're not rigid. You don't see individual, craft in there or triangles. It's more organic. So I was pretty perplexed on, are these kind of like interdimensionals forming this, more higher vibed ET race, if you will, comes up with this kind of technology rather than the more, maybe we'll just call it base or pedestrian style of craft. This thing off to the right looks like, again, like maybe a more higher vibrational form of craft. It's kind of like got the batwing format a little bit, and, definitely has symmetry to it, but more wispy, more illumined, just very interesting. There might be like a little version of that, a little bit different shape down in here. So maybe this overall thing is comprised of like a ring-shaped craft and another little one. Hard to say, but it's a very different kind of phenomenon happening up in the sky. Also, some of these seem to self-illumine. So in this case, these two things are in the same vicinity. They shouldn't have such a different color signature range, and yet they do. This is kind of like a paler version, and this is a little brighter. So I think some of these things do self-illumine. All right, now this is looking off to the west, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this other than to say that this just stood out, literally. Like, look at it. It's separated from what's supposed to be the bigger cloud body. And I know we got trees in the foreground, but still, this is like floating on its own. And then we look to the right, we see a totally different color signature going on. And it's like a bluish color, and we have a little object in here, and this is definitely some type of cloaking object. If you really look, you start to see little machine parts. And I invite you on any of these slides to go ahead and zoom in further on your own and see what you see. Down here, where it's more caught in the quote-unquote sundown sunlight, there's a backlit shape that's very triangular. So the more you look around all these photos, I can't point everything out. Some of them literally have, like, I don't want to say hundreds, but probably, but tons of different craft cloaking and hiding in there. I'm just kind of calling out some of the highlights. So this is a cover page of one of these shows called just Lavender Sky Panther, the covers. I have the covers 1 for the first, 60 shows or whatever, and then I have the covers 2 kind of at the end of all the shows. And I just took, just grabbed whatever would fit on the page, trying to capture maybe like the best of the best on some of the phenomenon going on. couple of these we've already seen. Some of these others are from the part 1 show. So I invite you to look there. Okay, this one I love in the lower left-hand corner because it's just like something is like shooting a big cannonball down at a linear craft down below. But as I covered in the show, it also just might be a different craft that's zooming down to dock on top of this thing. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to keep moving along. Okay, this one, we'll just start with the upper left-hand corner. Just this thing was just kind of looking weird in the sky, and so with some enhancement, it still looks strange. But this is a straight line on angle, so I'm calling this a craft, and maybe it's docking on top of another craft, but very mysterious looking. Lower left-hand corner, things started billowing up kind of on sight out of nowhere. This thing started kind of building up with more and more energy to it. It didn't come from somewhere else and then blow over. That's what's very unusual about some of these systems. And anyway, I just really like the energy going on all over the place in here. And with the way this is formed at the bottom, you know, it's just not a natural cloud. There's more going on here than meets the eye. Then to the lower right, this was just very curious because we have this little wispy thing arcing, you know, on its own. I think this is comprised also of multiple different kind of cloaking craft, but done in such a way that it's even kind of fuzzy to the naked eye, whereas everything else is crisp in view. So again, there's sometimes, I think, energy source going on in here, kind of throws off the camera a bit and makes it look a little fuzzy, as a part of its cloaking, does that with the camera. Alright, upper left, just strange formation. Again, nothing natural about that kind of a cloud, because we have this line, all the angles are kind of parallel to each other, and they're, you know, cut and divided, and that just, you know, I've been on this planet for many decades, just haven't seen anything form like that. Also, I'm familiar with the area of most of these photos, have been able to observe them on and off, more on than off for several decades. So I'm noticing that these are anomalous. These are not your typical puffy white cumulus clouds that you would see in mostly Miami, you know, South Florida region, is what I'm showing here, which is very subtropical to tropical climate. Okay, now this is an interesting little set of 4. We'll look at the right-hand side of the slide. Starting up here, this just looked very, very strange. Nothing, you know, natural about that cloud. In quotes, we go to the right, and then we see different color signatures happening beyond, and still just kind of strangeness. These do look fairly solid, and this thing is going more vertical, and this is going true horizontal. Again, natural clouds would not travel that way, would not be separated, and would not have 2 different trajectories that, you know, can be eventually perpendicular to each other. So then I'm just taking this piece of the cloud, and I started looking. The more I looked, I started to see a figure, and I thought, is that just my eyes playing tricks on me? Is that a case of pareidolia? Or is this actually a being, you know, kind of coming in a portal, you know, situation? So the more I looked at this, it looked like a being to me, kind of like with a pseudo-triangular head, a long neck. This is like a collar to a robe, and like a hand, almost like holding an apple close to its chest, is kind of what it was looking like to me. We have like a kite shape or diamond shape, pure shape here, so I know there's cloaking craft like busting out of here. It's just very bizarre. So I zoomed in, and I know this is a little fuzzy, but if you look at the smaller version over here, you know, that's where I started to see more of a face and a neck and all of that. And so here, you know, you see it again. So that would be the head, you know, the 2 eyes, like a nose, and the long neck, and the collar of the robe, and maybe the fingers and the hand like holding an apple. Anyway, see what you see. I'm calling it Sky Cameo because there's something very uncanny about this that I thought, is this some kind of way to show me a picture of an actual being? See what you think. Okay, the bottom is the original, the top is the enhanced version. So looking, you know, out over this just didn't look like normal cloud, and it was kind of just erupting on the spot, didn't like travel across the sky. And the more I look in here, you know, you just see a stick-like item, you see a triangle, you know, form. So once I start seeing pure triangles, it's enough to tell me we're dealing with parts and pieces and machinery. Here you kind of see the top, you see some reflectance on the top of this like pipe-like element. And you start to see different color signatures in and amongst this stuff, so you know there's different types of objects occurring in there. Okay, this, what do you see? Do you see that that's a natural cloud? Left side, wherever I can do it, the left side's going to be the original and the right's going to be the enhanced. in this kind of format. So look at this, that looks pretty straight to me. And you know, over here too, a very hard edge. So I think this is even coming out like a pyramid or like a cone, you know, sticking out toward us. So absolutely, you know, cloaking object, if you don't want to say craft, it's undeniably some kind of tech. Okay, upper left on this looks really bizarre. Those are like no clouds I've ever seen. You can see how low they are, how big they are, coming down really low in altitude. So again, how can something come like pitched down like this, and then another one's just sailing across horizontal if it's all like the same local weather? Can't happen. So we know something's going on. We look to the right with enhancement. Now I see more clearly that this is an object with like vapor trail coming behind it. And then we even see a weird way of something cloaking back here. Looks almost like rippled water. And then in the foreground, this is a silhouette of that crazy form of, we'll just say, cloud in quotes. You know, that's not natural cloud, doesn't do that, and it's not that low. Lower left-hand corner, just weird patterning. We look to the right, again, see really weird patterning happening in here. And again, I think that's part of the cloaking. I think there's a bigger craft in the back, and they kind of send out this ripple, you know, send out frequencies, sound frequencies to create this, what I call staccato cloud effect, to help assist with camouflaging some of these things. And then here to the lower right, you can just clearly see that some separate independent object there floating in the you know, camouflage, if you will. Okay, upper left-hand corner is the original. To the right, we do some enhancement. What is this? I mean, this isn't smudge on a lens. I'm looking at this with my naked eyes. So it just looked very strange in the sky. And now the lower right-hand corner is zoomed in and with some more contrast, and we just see independent objects. So look at, that's a pointed ellipse. This is some symmetrical element. Well, actually, the overall thing is like this. There's a little camouflage flaring up to kind of makes it look like two objects, but it's one. This is more or less on a straight diagonal, you know, angle here. So really bizarre. Similarly, we got this diagonal. This is a different situation, but this is self-illuminating, because how can you have cloud right adjacent and it's not lit up? This is not the effect of a sunset or anything. And again, we got weird rippling and things coming from above. We've got a cyan ethereal light coming from above too. And then we get it, move into this warm glow situation right on top of a cool blue, right, indigo. So we got cloak and craft happening here. And I suspect this is probably one type of craft sitting on some kind of a platform. But look at the, you know, the size of it's pretty massive, because these are trees and that's happening beyond in the sky. All right, upper left-hand corner, just this looked really bright white, and up here too. So let's look at it, and we look at it, and that's like like a perfect rim around a little element in the middle. And something else funny happening over here, and then we're going to look in this too. So we go down here, and these look like independent little objects, you know, all in a line. So I'm calling these craft. Some kind of craft up here at C.1. Then this is a cover called Sky Tracks. And this caught my attention because this was like a line. And this is another line kind of parallel to this one. And then this looks like one big craft with like illumination coming backlit, you know, on it. Alright, we're going to move on. Upper left-hand corner, again, staccato cloud, really rough and weird looking all of a sudden. And then up here, it looks like actually, if you know what a lotus looks like, the top of it, when everything's out and you got those little divots, kind of has that structure to it. So we look to the right, and sure as heck, this has some, you know, kind of engineered structure to it. The spacing of those holes and like the webbing in between, creating a pattern. And then, you know, just weirdness of whatever's going on all in here. I invite you to look at this more on your own time. Lower left-hand corner is a cover on one of the shows called Sky Speak. Look at this. It looks like a trumpet, you know. It's almost like that thing we looked at earlier that was more, you know, up and down, but now it's like on its side. But that's a pure geometrical form with a very hard line. So that's enough to tell me we got cloak and craft and objects all over the place in this one. Then the lower right-hand corner, what the heck is this? You know, I'm looking off to the south, and this looks like it's erupting, you know, just a couple streets away. This is just a suburban neighborhood. And it's just coming vertical out of seeming nowhere. And no clouds do that in this area. And then we've got on top of it, the left-hand side of here is the original, the right-hand side is the enhanced. Look at this, starts to make a straight line. But really, what the heck, it's like rising up like a Christmas tree. And I don't know of any natural clouds that do that, nor any that come this low and just like a few streets away start to form out of nowhere. So it's very interesting. It's absolutely, there's cloaking craft in there. And then look at the color signatures too. Start to get interesting. You know, when you look at the sky beyond, and that this absolutely has kind of its own thing going on, maybe its own illumination within there as well. Okay, upper left-hand corner is the original, and already I see backlit, you know, pure triangular form and straight lines. So we look to the right and look at, with enhancement, you really see that backlighting, you know, perfect triangular form. I don't know what the heck this is, but it's some type of craft, cloaking craft. Lower left-hand corner, I just sensed like this glow of a different color. So with enhancement, you kind of see what might be generating that. What is this? I have no clue, but look at it, it's almost like something came down, you know, parting the atmosphere, and so maybe the source of it is really embedded in here. I don't know, but it's pretty crazy, wild looking. All right, lower view is original, so with the naked eye you see this, and it had a very different glow going on over here than over here, and so with enhancement you can see why. So if I can see this kind of color change, and it's not happening anywhere else, you know there's some type of craft happening in there. All right, this one gets interesting. This is a little bit of a distorted, it's a panorama, so it's not a true view, but it's close. It's a little distorted. So the lower image is the original, the upper is enhanced. So anyway, we just see different colors happening in here, different patterning, bright whites at the very top. I mean, just the overall color signatures that emerged were really interesting. And that's mainly what I want to show this one for. But I will say that the way these lines are kind of parallel, you know, we're dealing with cloaking craft. I would just say multiple craft all over the place in this scene. All right, here we have a look on the upper ones of chemtrailing, where it starts to expand and get really thick, and it's done like in an X-like pattern. But there's a little more going on behind it. So I'd say the stuff going on behind it is the forming of cloaking craft. Now sometimes too, I believe that the chemtrailing done like in an X or in a line is done as a red herring to throw you off from looking at bigger craft beyond. I've seen a lot of times where it looks like a more massive craft is there, and the line's going like seemingly right through it. And again, I think it's for some entities, they don't want you to know that there's big cloaking craft, so they throw a line up there to take your attention away from it. Now, I do definitely believe that a lot of these are chemical field trails with harmful things. But I do believe there's also things called camouflage trails where they're just thrown up there as a red herring, and perhaps there isn't chemical stuff in there. That's up, you know, for discussion. See what you think. All right, lower left-hand corner is the original. The right-hand corner is the enhanced version, and this is a little distorted once again. Anytime you see panorama in the lower title, that shows a kind of, you know, took a panorama, so it's not going to be a true panorama though. It's going to be a little bent. So like these curves should be straight. It's power lines, so you get the idea. But it does at least give a more expansive view when I was looking in certain directions. In this case, I caught it because it looked like there was a rainbow, and I just wanted to see what else would happen. What interested me is the color, you know, changes, the color signatures. I think there's something bigger, cloaking beyond. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back. All right, let's keep going. All right, this one, you can see, upper left, cluster of these things. To the right, more enhanced, and below, even more. Hold on one more time. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I got something in my throat. We'll see how much I can keep going here. All right, so we move along, and we start to see independent shapes. And again, down here, and as I said, once I see that first, you know, more pure or truncated, triangular shape, you know, pop out, I know we're dealing with cloaking craft. This thing looks to an angle, there's a straight line, something perpendicular crossing it. I know that's not natural. Lower left, these just seem to be moving kind of parallel. And when you really look, you start to see individual objects in this thing. But we'll keep moving. Okay, this is one of the covers on one of the shows. So the original is off to the left, to the right. With enhancement, we just see all this wild color and movement. This even looks almost like a little star hanging out here. And this is a pure triangular form. Other little shapes and forms in there. And then down in the lower right, again, look at this. It's an example of something crossing. And when you move in on these little, like brush strokes, it looks like, I think you'll find like their individual craft that assembled to look like that. Alright, upper left just caught my attention because I started to see a triangle up here. Now we look to the right, there it is. With more enhancement you see it, you know, sharp edge. And then this too looks like a kind of a combination of cloaking items, so maybe one across here with something piggybacking it. Lower left hand corner, just the color got my attention. I knew there was some kind of warmer tone happening beyond on a big scale. These are power lines with like a swath of land clear, so it was a kind of a good place to check out some of the horizons. But here you can see, I don't know what that is. I don't know what's generating it, but I know something is, because that's got a red-pink tone and nothing else around it is like that. Okay, this one, the left-hand side's the original, right hand is enhanced. This one gets fun. Okay, not only do we have kind of different color signatures all over the place, we have some backlit objects that look very technical here. If the more you look and zoom in on some of these things, I already see something pitching down like a spike into this scene. That wouldn't be a natural cloud doing that on that angle. But what really caught my attention is what's going on with this curve, and it looks like a stick is coming toward us. So zooming in a little bit more, on the left is the original, on the right is with enhancement, and look at this. That is a pure, it's almost like a banana shape with a pipe coming out toward us. So we're going to look, I'm going to zoom in on that one more time, and here's like a little triangular shape as well. Here's that banana shape. That is a machine part of some kind poking out. And this looks like, yeah, like some type of stick coming toward us with a straight line on it, like a little foot on this thing. So what do you see happening in here? And there's also like holes, like looks like holes or indentations marching along in a rhythmical way, and equal spacing. So that's some kind of tech. And then here it looks like a little craft is, you know, launching up out of, you know, this camouflage material, and another little canister type thing too. All right, upper left is original, upper right is enhanced, and look at this. What the heck is going on here? Look at these little chunks in a row. This is pretty wild. I'm going to leave this to you to look further at, but look at this. This is curved to one side, curved to the other. It's a perfect symmetry on that thing. And they're little sticks or pipes coming out. And anytime I see holes or sticks or pipes kind of along the perimeter of some of these things, I think that's what makes all this extra little quote-unquote camouflage or artificial cloud, so they cloak within it. All right, lower left, just strange trajectories of these chemtrails. We look to the right, lower right. Oh, also on the left, I started to see something emerge here. So looking at the right-hand side with more enhancement, see kind of an object starting to reveal itself. And that's mainly what I wanted to catch. There's so much more going on in this scene, though. Like beyond, it looks like another bigger cloaking craft happening. See what you can see in there. All right, this one was interesting because if we just look at this overall scene, you see the power lines once again. Look at this. It's like boom, 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 and this thing is like rocketing off. And we come up here, I took the color out, and you can just see that's like a wedge-shaped object, you know? And it's, I guess, expended this stuff on its way out. Okay, upper left-hand corner original, and then toward the right, just with some enhancement. I did do extreme color saturations. We could see the different signatures happening beyond. I think there is something, some other artificial something illuminating on its own beyond this kind of thick haze of camouflage cover. But look at this. This thing has like a trail popping up, and then it goes horizontal. This thing's going up vertical. So we come down here to the lower right, and we zoom in. Look at this. What's going on there? That's not natural cloud. This is definitely like a walnut-shaped craft. It looks like it's even shooting out some vapor trail, you know, with a different color signature. And then, you know, this is a little object. Maybe this is attached to, you know, a bigger object below, which I think it is, because that looks like a triangle here. So what I'm saying is in the upper right-hand corner, this looks like one long, maybe craft, a little piggybacking craft on it or something. Very strange. Lower left-hand corner, just looking in the left side's the original, the right is enhanced. Right away, you know, I saw that little triangle popping up to the naked eye, so I wanted to see more. And look at again the color signatures. We've got some curve. This looks like a bigger craft beyond, with like some type of elliptical thing happening or spherical thing in the front. I guess like a, yeah, ellipsoid, and pure geometry here. So what's going on? Okay, upper left-hand corner. This is like what's called like an imprint, I call it, because something looks darker, it has symmetry, and look at that. I'm not sure what's going on, but we've got symmetry on the overall thing, plus like symmetry here with some other triangles, other shapes happening. Very bizarre. To the right, we have the on the left is the original, to the right is the enhanced. Look at this, like a perfect ring. And then these sticks and things, and then these look like independent Cloaking craft, kind of helping form an overall kind of X shape. Very strange. With like a suction cup in the middle is what it looks like. The lower left is the original. The lower right is the enhanced. We start to see color. We start to see something that looks like it's self-illuminating in there. And then we have like little bits and pieces flying off. And when you really zoom in on the perimeter, you start to see craft and machine parts. And here I just blew out again the color saturation to see if I could see anything else. And what I see is like a bigger, darker object hiding in there. And little other things like, you know, shooting off there and there. Okay, this one's really weird. Look how low this is. This is the top of a palm tree. Not a crazy high palm tree, just like a normal palm tree. Maybe, you know, 20 feet, I don't know. And then look above it. This was really, really low and just looked very odd to me, so I took a picture. Now, with enhancement, we see like a little cutout that has symmetry to it. So I think there's a craft over here. And I think this overall thing is like an almond-shaped, a vertical almond-shaped craft. Look here where my cursor is. That's a pipe here and here. So again, are these the pipes that blow out the, you know, extra kind of cloud material? I don't know. But the color signature here too is very interesting. Plus, the more you look at this, these are like parallel, almost like a clasp on the side of this thing. And these, you know, are, you know, these vertical lines, you know, come along in a rhythmical way. So this whole thing is engineered. So it's a very interesting, you know, Cloaking craft. Okay, this is the cover of Sky So Fly in the upper left-hand corner. And again, just weird movement, something interrupting over here. I think there's several Cloaking craft forming this overall swoosh. Oh, sorry, the lower left-hand corner is the original. So that was just a shape coming across level, and then one rising up and hooking did catch my attention. The upper right-hand corner shows that we have a different color signature up here, so that's an object poised at the top, and maybe others, you know, that could be a triangular one happened down here. And then this piece at A3 is this, just taking out the color to see what we're working with. We have a pretty regular line. To me, that's an object. And then the lower right-hand corner, the left-hand side is the original, the right-hand side is with enhancement. This just is strange. Look at, there's a line coming across here separate from this. This is coming this way. To me, there's lots of little Cloaking craft happening in that scene. And hang on one second. Okay, I'm back. All right. This one, looking off at the horizon there, just everything looked really strange. Like this had straight lines and looked like something was coming out of it. So we go to the upper right-hand corner, and you can see what I mean. See these lines? It looks like something's shooting out of this thing. Lower picture here too, just everything about it just showed me that this has to be comprised of a bunch of different little craft. The lower scene is zooming in on the what looks like kind of like a beak, like something opened up its mouth and is shooting it out. But look at how straight these lines are, you know? And they're pretty consistent, so to me those are machine parts. And this is like a little craft or object, you know, zooming up off the deck of this thing maybe, launching somewhere. When we look up here, we can just see that, you know, this looks like several different parts, and that vapor trails are coming out, and these are little objects speeding off. Lower left-hand corner, what the heck is this thing? These are two palm trees. This looks like one big, like, cotton candy or candy floss if you're in the UK and other places where you call it candy floss, maybe New Zealand as well. But it looks like, you know, what's going on? Is that a solid object, or is that like a hole? And then it looks like an object maybe zooming up out of this cloud, quote-unquote. Something maybe coming in or out of it, and weird little things happening off to the side. All right, we'll move along. Okay, this one's very interesting. This particular tree happens to be a rainbow eucalyptus. Very tall tree. But once again, we see out of nowhere, we have, this is just a suburban area of Miami. We have cloud just billowing up on the spot and going vertical off to the side. So we look to the right. This is a diamond shape here. So this again I think is a cluster of a bunch of craft. Look at the color signatures. It's kind of reddish around the edge, blue, you know, more of a royal blue, indigo blue. And look at it, it looks like this whole entire thing with a very curved, you know, very rigid curve at the bottom, no less, just zoomed up off of whatever this was. You see kind of the vapor trail connection. Very odd. Lower left-hand corner, original. Lower right is the enhanced version. Look at this, is a totally different object. Kind of has like a little pendulum tip shape to it. And what the heck is going down over here? Looks like there's little fins happening, you know, on the end of this thing. And then what does this attach to? Look at this bigger nebulous thing. I don't know what that is. And then this is moving across horizontal while that's going up more vertical. Yeah, that's artificial. Something's going on there. Now this is interesting because on this upper left-hand corner is a little inset zooming in on B1, which is all the way down here. I zoomed in way down there, and look, we have this perfect kind of dart shape, you know, which is a craft, cloaking craft. All right, A and B, off in the distance here. I saw weird little things, and I thought, no other clouds are presenting. That's got to be probably something cloaking. So with some enhancement on the right, you see a little more is coming to bear. And then the lower right-hand corner, yes, you know, we see like a, what do I want to call it, like a caret symbol on a keyboard, you know, little, perfect little delta or chevron or whatever. But I think these are actually holes. You know, I think we're seeing like the end of a craft, and these are almost like exhaust little pipes or something. I don't know, but I think this is all part of one cloaking craft, and we're just seeing like the points of it, so to speak. Lower left-hand corner, this was just weird on every level. Not only can I not quite tell what this structure is, I'm calling it structure, because again, it's, you know, kind of symmetrical, and there's like a rounded element, and then this thing's kind of floating on in the front of it, and when we look up here and take the color out, look at this. These are engineered parts. What is this? So I think we're watching something that's kind of in different stages or states of cloaking in and out. Pretty cool. Don't know exactly what's going on, but I know enough is going on to tell me that's artificial objects. All right, this is very interesting, the upper left-hand corner. This just looks strange. The left-hand side is the original. We put enhancement on it to the right, and look at element A here becomes this weird, like, spoke. I mean, you know, center of a wheel with like things radiating out of it. So we look at this inset, and I move in and look at it. It absolutely is like some kind of gear machine part. Really wild looking. Now, the right-hand side, I'm not going to talk too much about this. I'm going to leave this to all of you to kind of look at on your own, where I have these two things. Again, this is kind of going vertical, this is going horizontal, and more things are happening beyond. Lower left-hand side, just, again, the feeling in the air was so strange. Things started erupting, getting kind of choppy, and then we have this little weird thing at sea. So we look to the right with enhancement, and sure enough, we have, how do we have this burst of white energy? And everything right adjacent to it is a reddish raspberry pink and blues and indigos. There's all kinds of stuff happening in that scene. A lot of artificial stuff, especially if you zoom in and look here at what's going on down here near D.1. All right, this is a cover called Sky Shifting, and this was looking off in the distance. What caught my attention were, you know, the way this is backlit. We have these notches that are pretty regularized with a straight lines. And then this little thing started emerging. You know, it looks like a disc happening back there. Now, that was way off in the distance. I don't know if I have the overall context slide coming up or not. But anyway, this gets interesting. Upper left-hand corner, I note A. There seemed to be a sphere sitting on this cloud, quote-unquote cloud. We go to the right with enhancement. It becomes even more like a sphere. Weird little things happening here with symmetry, these 3 points. We'll save that for later. But we come down to the lower left-hand corner and look at more and more. We're seeing like a sphere, a little bit of a ellipsoidal, you know, kind of spherical thing. Come to the lower right, it's still a sphere, but now we start to see like a dent in it, a depression. Upper right, a little inset. I put slightly different color saturation on it to look at it maybe in a different way. And you still see it's like a little, like a marble with like an indentation in it. So I think this one at 8.5 is like the best view to show it. It's slightly different color than the rest. The way it's poised there with a shadow. It's an object. Now, is it a standalone object, or are we just seeing the front of maybe a craft and this is like an arm of it? I think it's attached to something else that's being cloaked beneath it. But see what you think. Oh, we go in one more time. So actually it's not one indentation, but it's like two indentations here and here. Okay, this overall was just strange. Left-hand side's original, right-hand's enhanced. We got a lot of different movements, you know, with kind of angles to them and points to them to be natural cloud. I really don't know what's going on with the scene. You might want to zoom in and see what's going on for yourself a little bit more when you have more time. Alright, Sky Stumpers, just the cover slide. Again, we got the presence of triangles, elongated triangles, and also different color signatures all over the place. Upper right-hand side, again, left is original, right is enhanced. We start to see, you know, stuff with straight lines. This little thing has very hard edges to it, with like a little vapor trail behind it. I'm going to say that's a cloaking craft. See what you find in that scene. Lower left-hand corner is called Sky Drifting. That was a cover. This was just really crazy looking, even to the naked eye. And it's behind these palm trees, but it just kind of fans out, and it just was really weird. So what I'm going to say is that's a local craft, big craft hiding in there. That's not harp or anything. That's something that is locally, you know, just doing something with the sky. And again, the palm trees are in focus. This was all like hazy even to the naked eye. If you go back to that show, you'll see the original compared to the enhanced version. Alright, lower right hand corner, what is this? This is an object with another object above it, and they're just kind of traveling really, really, really low, kind of over a roof in the sky, but yet it's supposed to be clouds, wink wink. Okay, upper left hand corner original, upper right enhanced version. We just start to make out some shapes. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. Lower left hand corner, again, just kind of weird, you know, not natural clouds that I know of. So with some enhancement, we start to see these are individual like objects. And with the lower right, we zoom in on just this area between A and B, and we start to see like a little fish-shaped thing, and again, little independent objects, forming this overall cluster, which is not a natural cloud. Alright, upper left-hand corner, we have some kind of object with a bright white one, and yet this is dark, and they're very much in the same vicinity in the sky. So I wanted to zoom in on that little A character I do down here, and the more I look, the more I see rigid shapes and geometries, and that's a little craft of some type. Lower left-hand corner, again, if you look at the original show, Sky Freestyle, it'll show the original, but then you start to see these are all independent craft lined up next to each other with a very interesting kind of self-illuminating color signature. Lower right-hand corner, Sky Scenery. I was stumped with this one, but it's absolutely multiple craft, you know, one up here too. I think an overall huge one up here. I don't know what's going on down here. See what you see in this scene. Okay, this one gets interesting too. Upper left is original, upper right starts to get enhanced. So these just weren't looking like normal clouds. So with the enhancement to the right, you start to see some little machine parts popping in and out, like little holes in weird places. So, and down here too. So to me, those are all cloaking craft. I think on the next slide, I zoom in more on this upper right one. Okay, lower left is original, lower right is with enhancement. And again, we see one of those telltale triangular shaped things and other type of craft shapes. And then again, we got something coming in an angle while we have this coming straight across and this doing its own thing. There's nothing natural about that, and you can't call that, you know, natural cloud. Here, we're going to zoom back in. Okay, so upper right-hand corner, like I said, we're going to look at that A.1 craft, I'm calling it. There it was over here. You can see it pretty well, too, on the A. So now we look at this. We got, you know, dark black shows we got solid object. This lighter stuff is like the cloaking material coming up over it. I call that plasma for now. And then we have these little elements sticking out. You know, they look like pipes, 1, 2, 3. Maybe some 3 back here. And then we have something that looks like it has trajectory, like it flew out, maybe it was docked underneath this thing, and it's now flying off to explore. That's what I see. This is a weird little thing. Looks like it has 2 fins. It's more organic looking craft. And then all of this below is just showing me little pipes sticking out. Look at the edge of this. Just got all weird little stuff along the profile of that. see what you can see, but none of this is natural cloud. We're going to move in one more time on that A component, and I'm calling that, yeah, overall craft with like maybe pipes or other little things sticking out, machine parts. See what you see in there. Okay, this thing looked weird. Okay, bottom is original, top is enhanced. And it's just, this became like a big fan shape, very artificial looking, very frayed. You know, again, not a typical cloud for this area. And all of a sudden we see different cloaking types. You know, like that's a little bit of a staccato cloud effect. This is kind of weird, like frayed and wispy. And this becomes a very solid type of objects, you know, and really weird configurations. Okay, this is coming along low altitude. You see the trees. And it just looked like, if you look at the original show, just looked like kind of regular cloud, but when you know, put the enhancement on it, you see the different color signatures. Again, it's like a walnut-shaped object and like another maybe triangular-shaped object. Very strange stuff. Okay, this is a little inset on the bigger picture happening down here. So already this bigger picture has enhancement on it. Up here in the little inset is the original. So we have a white, glaring, artificial-looking sun. We have a golden tone, which might be the original sun setting beyond all this junk in the sky. Then we have these little weird bits and pieces, which have very rigid forms to them. So those, to me, after zooming in, are cloaking objects. Why so many different weird layers and striations in the sky? Again, this is the original up here. Very bizarre looking. I think these are craft. These are little, maybe scouting craft or objects that take, you know, atmospheric readings. I don't know. But all very, really strange stuff going on in the scene, and especially when we get down here too. But mainly I wanted to note just the many different kind of color signatures and light sources where there should just be one of a setting sun happening in that scene. But here we zoom into those little confetti pieces, and the more you get in looking at each one, there's a straight line with a little, you know, globule at the end of it. To me, those are all cloaking craft. Here's a little cloaking craft coming out of this glare pocket. So again, and there seems like to be a stick-like thing. The more you look, the more you're going to find in each photo. Okay, left-hand side is the original, right hand is enhanced. And again, we start to see right away, as soon as I see my first kind of more or less perfect triangle here at B, you kind of look around the room, so to speak. You're going to see more. There's another one at C. And just, again, look at this. This has a straight edge. And this has a perpendicular stick coming out of it. So that's a cloaking craft. Okay, this one is in Australia. So this photo came in from a very kind friend of the channel, Yowie Grrowlz, in Australia. And Yowie Grrowlz noticed this sky, and that's a great show to just look at the standalone show. But Yowie Grrowlz noticed this kind of like weird vertical element at H6. And, you know, you can see it more pronounced with enhancement. And the whole sky was strange, too. So we're going to look in just at the little vertical element. And then when we zoom in, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, it's basically the cover slide, which is down here at the lower left. But the weird thing is, actually I'm going to go down to the cover slide. The weird thing is there's like this, like, tube, you know, this weird shaped tube. Looks like a vessel, like a clay pot extruded. I don't know. And then that's pretty clear, that machine part. And then you have this thing. And then in the back you have a truncated triangle. And so when we zoom in just on this thing and play around with it, it's got like weird little holes, weird texture. And I just put down for fun this head of this horse, the seahorse. Kind of reminded me of, like, it has a seahorse feel to it, whatever it is. I don't know what this thing is, but it's an object sitting there in the sky with another drum-like, you know, object. It looks like a flattened, if you know, in the United States at least, there's the concrete mixing trucks. It looks like that. It looks like the concrete truck mixer part in the back, but like flattened out a bit. Very strange stuff. But again, we got rigid geometries all over the place with a more organic one. So I'm not sure what it is or what it's doing. Maybe you have some ideas. Okay, still in Australia, still from Yowie Grrowlz, courtesy of Yowie Grrowlz. Thank you, Yowie Grrowlz, if you see this show. So the upper left-hand side, upper left-hand corner is the original, and it just looks strange, you know. And then we go to the upper right to see it with a little more, you know, enhancement, and we see just a very hard shape here. So then we go down to the lower left, and just for tongue-in-cheek fun, it was called sky spearfishing, because this looks like some type of little whale-like thing And this looks like a little being with arms holding a spearfishing gun. So we go to the right and just look at that part. But look at this. This is a actual object. So it looks like something with a dorsal fin on it and a warm color with something shooting out of it. So, and this looks like a little being bending down with his arms to trigger it. Again, what's going on here? I don't know, but we got symmetry here and here with these things. Maybe this is several different craft comprising a scene, or maybe this is just like some little being, and that's like a headpiece or antennae, and that is an arm, you know, holding onto this thing, and those are the little legs and like a little tail. I don't know. What do you see in that scene? Here we go one more time. See, those look symmetrical, and kind of has a aquatic amphibious feel to it, right? See what you think. I mean, I swear it looks like almost like a dolphin being with these weird antennae, and then its little arm is coming down to trigger this thing, and those are its little legs. It's walking with a tail. I don't know. We'll see what you think. But look at this, is really rigid. I don't know what we're looking at. See what you think. Okay, this one gets very interesting. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but the overall scene is to the upper left, is the original. You know, a lot of weird little things going on in the sky. This is hooking out crazy. So right away I'm like, what's going on here? We look to the right. I start to see an object here. It almost looks like a big angry fish mouth coming at us, like an angry koi fish. If that's the big mouth open and an eye, if you see what I mean, it's coming into the scene. Weird little things happening off here. Strange color signatures all over the place. Weird kind of lines, hard lines coming out of whatever this is. And anyway, what started to catch my attention though was this hooked thing. And I went in to check it out, and let me just see where this happens. Give me 1 second. Okay, I was looking at this hook thing, but at a certain point, I was looking also at this shape, and I'm trying to see it above, but I can't right now. Anyway, looking at the top or the profile of some of these quote-unquote clouds, things get interesting. So I looked at this and I'm like, that's kind of looking like a human figure. So we looked to the right, and with more backlighting, you know, contrast on this thing, taking out a little bit of the color, this still started looking like a leg, a body, you know, the head and maybe some arms. So I zoomed in further, and it does look like a little being, humanoid being, like if it's looking not at us, but its back is toward us. I swear it looks like that's the head and the shoulders with the arms kind of holding something maybe to the front of its chest, and that's like the butt area with a leg, and this is like a crossbow and a quiver. I don't know. It looks very humanoid. It might just be a case of pareidolia, but I don't think so. It could be a little being up there, kind of like spacewalking. See what you think. All right, we're going to keep going. And this also is just, again, to show something's happening here. To me, that's like a organic-looking craft emerging, but see what you think. All right, this is just showing that I did play around with some night goggle vision. What is it? Night vision goggles, binoculars. And this is just showing, like, with infrared, you know, you really light up. You know, it can be pitch black, but yet you see this palm tree when you put the infrared on. And then this is with night vision IR, or infrared, and that's looking up in the sky. So I was seeing a UFO go all the way from the northwestern sky all the way to the southeastern sky. I watched it with my naked eyes, tracking it. It was not Starlink, it was not a plane, it was not a drone, it was a different object, and it occasionally blinked, and then it started like dropping down, down, down. It was very strange. Anyway, that's in that show. This was really interesting. This is a note, a musical note. It's backwards, but there's just this in the sky and nothing else like it. And I think that was a personal little message or note for me at the time, whatever I was contemplating with music. Then the lower left-hand corner, I took this because the patterning in the quote-unquote clouds was so strange. And then I also noticed it was like a different color happening. So with enhancement, yes, you start to see a great gradient of kind of a reddish color going more golden, and even a weird tinge of green below. I don't know what this is. I have a feeling though it's some kind of craft itself creating and generating this pattern, but it's, you know, just completely cloaked. There's no evidence of the machine parts, I don't think, on this one. But look at, there's like a straight line cutting across. It's really strange. Then on the right hand side, this was also kind of like this little note above, the musical note, was also like a foot. So at this time I was really getting into researching about Bigfoot and Sasquatch Yowies. And I looked up and I'm like, no way, I'm being shown a foot. So I think that was somebody's little wink and a smile and a nod, like acknowledging me, and they know what I was doing, because it really does look like a foot, like that's the big toe and stuff going on. Anyway, I think that message was personal for me. All right, upper left-hand corner, weird stuff going on. Glare hot spot. This is going up vertical while this is going horizontal. And again, it's just like a jigsaw puzzle that all fits together neatly. So we look to the right with more enhancement. I didn't get at too much more other than this is just really strange and too precise to be just random organic clouds. Lower left-hand corner, this thing sailed in wispy-like, very dreamy-like. And so to the lower right-hand corner, the enhanced version over here where my cursor is, look at that thing. It just kind of came in very otherworldly, like some otherworldly sail of a ship. Really, really cool. And then to the right, it's, I zoomed in and just worked with some of the enhancements a little more. And it's hard to say if this is like one piece down there and this is separate or it's all one thing. But I think we can agree that a natural cloud would not look like that or feel like that, more importantly. All right, upper left-hand corner, lovely quote-unquote chemtrails. To the right, there it is, starting to spread out. But I think there's a craft hiding in there, so I think it's not chemtrail. That might be a case of camouflage trail. Then we got this thing. There starts to be kind of like a hole in it. This is off the back side. I think we got cloak and craft happening in there. Lower left-hand corner, just weird shapes. And then we got like weird little things trailing off of like this element C. But more importantly, A was looking like a separate standalone object, so was B. So we go to the right-hand side. Look at this. A1, that's a separate little object. It's symmetrical. It's got like wings, and a pipe going down the middle. Looks like some kind of little plane. And then B, little objects making up a triangle. And then I don't know what's going on with C, but there's like a rigid shape, diamond shaped happening over here. I don't know what's going on at D. The whole scene was just so strange. But we're going to keep looking at it. So 8.1, things start to be more clear. Now I'm zooming in and playing around with the enhancements. And you can just, again, see some kind of object that's symmetrical. Yeah, and they're like, what's this thing over here? We go down the lower left. We see things a little bit better. Not sure what this is, but it looks kind of like a ring with something kind of flying through it. And again, that's like a perfect dart shape, with a point. And this is just this little element, A element, fascinated me. So to me, it looks like almost like an old-fashioned plane. We're looking at it from the bottom, and it's like flying up this way with the two wings on the side, and maybe there's a dome or something happening on top of it, hard to say. Okay, left-hand side's the original, right hand is the enhanced. And it's almost like magic when we go from original to enhanced. We start to see the different color signatures. You can really pick out, which one of these things is not like the others type of thing. So the different color signature here and the shape tells me that's a craft sitting there. Other weird things are happening down here below and all along this thing. Okay, upper hand left corner is the original. Upper right hand corner is the enhanced. And this looks like a standalone craft with almost like a dorsal fin on the top. And these are separate little independent items, but all look like cloaking objects. Lower left-hand corner, the original is on the left, the enhanced is on the right. These are separate objects again, forming very strange forms that are not natural cloud-like. Lower right-hand corner, we have an object coming down. This is a trail of a thing coming down, and it's a vertical element, very hard element. And so we go up to the little inset to the upper right-hand corner, and you can just see it's got things reflecting off of it. It's a solid object, and then it has a trail. So I'm not sure what that thing is, but I watched it for quite some time. Held together, its shape. Very strange. Oh, we're going to see it some more. Okay, so I'm just going to not stick with the original, go to the right, and then up the inset, you can see. Look at where my cursor is. It's got a point to it here. And so it's almost like a baton. It's just really, really weird. Okay, this one's interesting. Upper left-hand corner at A started to look like a dragon in flight. And the title of the show is Dimension Dipping, Dragon in Flight. The upper right-hand corner, I was blowing out the contrast to kind of just isolate and see what that item is. Lower left-hand corner, I zoomed in, and it looked very graceful. It looked like a wing, and like the head was coming at us with the legs behind and a tail. So at first, and here you see it over here too. So at first, it kind of looked like a a very graceful dragon, maybe dimension dipping, like coming into our dimension and then fading out. But the more I got looking at this thing, it looks like another case of multiple craft forming it to make it look like that. So this looks like a separate hardened object. And then, you know, the more you look, I think there's like a triangle in here and others. Very, very bizarre. Okay, this is at a park, and it almost looks like a big hand, you know, is holding between the index finger and the thumb, like a little jewel. So we look to the right with enhancement. We can see this thing is not the same as all of this. So what's going on? What's going on is there's cloak and craft in here, and just certain ones emerge and like perch at the top of the profile of some of these clouds. Look, that's a weird extrusion. You know, that's not a natural cloud doing this. So you can bet there's other independent cloak and craft kind of forming that overall shape. Ooh, okay, the upper, this was on the summer solstice, I believe. So the upper left-hand corner is the title page cover, Phoenix Solar Flyby. So look at this. The original's in the center. I guess we should look there. Look how weird and choppy this sky was, and then it did weird stuff down here too. So to the left is with enhancement. It looks like an almond kind of popping up out of here, huge. So that would be like one big cloak and craft, I think. And then we have something that looks like a windshield wiper came across here. I don't know. This whole thing too could be like this white part could be a craft. I'm really stumped on this one. Do you have any great ideas on what we're seeing here? Let me know. But when we look to the far right, we see here too, this thing over here, this almond-shaped thing. Looks like it's like sitting on top of some kind of platform. I really would love to know what's going on up here. I have no clue. See what you see in the scene. This is a different scene now, I believe. Lower left-hand corner. This was just strange. Again, you know, we see like a darkened shape and a bright spot where it shouldn't be in the sky. Really rough staccato-like texture in the sky. And then we look to the right and we can see this thing is a different object happening over here than whatever this thing is. See what you see in there? And the lower right-hand corner. This, again, did not look like a case of HARP technology. This looked like, you know, the original's here to the left, the enhanced version to the right, because it has a different color signature to it. And it has a very precise way of, like, vertically rippling up. I think there's a more massive craft happening back in here. And this is some other effect happening below it. These two are in the same angle, and so they look like independent cloak and craft there too. Anyway, fascinating scene. And it felt really weird in the sky. Okay, this one I'm going to go quickly through. This is a shorter one of my shows, so I recommend you just go to the show itself. Lightning Show, Epic Backyard Night Craft Sky Battle. This I recommend that everyone try out once in a while. This happened in June, I believed, and June in 2021. I was looking at some lightning clouds, or storm activity in some clouds that were supposedly throwing lightning around, and they stayed there for over an hour and a half in the same position. Okay, clouds in Miami, over Miami, don't do that. They always move somewhat if they're natural. So that really caught my attention. Why are we having lightning flashes just stationary in that area of the sky for over an hour and a half? And what happened was that one grouping of the cloud, in quotes, would flash some light. Then the other grouping across from it, to the left, say, would start flashing back. And there started to be kind of like a call and response pattern. If you know, like jazz music, there's like a call and response, where somebody sings and the other person kind of echoes it. So that was what was going on here. And anyway, I just invite you to see the show. So right here, what I did was I took video of the quote-unquote lightning activity, and then I slowly swiped frame by frame, and I noticed on the flashes it was backlighting some objects and caught one of the best evidence of craft I have, and that was on the part 1 cover. We're kind of overlapping a little bit because I thought I was going to put everything in that first part 1. But anyway, let's get going. So upper left-hand corner already, this is one of the frames where there was a flash, and I start to see objects. That's like a pointed ellipse with legs on it. And then this was like a wedge-shaped thing. So I started to see these getting backlit. And then with a little bit more of intensity of the flash, you know, you see that this looks weird. Looks like things are shooting off of it. And again, we have a hardened object here at B. And we're going to zoom in on, you know, this at A and B down here. So A and B, you know, we start to see, what is this thing? It looks like a beehive, you know, something flying out of it. And B, we start to see a rigid cutout, that's absolutely flying object. And so here's B, it starts morphing into this, looks like a butcher's knife with like a handle on the back. And the more we look at it, going to the left-hand corner, lower left, it's an actual hardened object. I don't know if that's a light or something projecting out from it or what, but you see it sitting on a tufted cloud of plasma. So it's like a dense, cloud cover, camouflage cover. It's just sitting on a little bed of whatever that is, right? Other objects, hardened object in the foreground, just a lot of weird stuff going on. And then that object starts to kind of morph a bit as it's going flying off into this mess, whatever's going on in here. It looks like, oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. It looks like it's almost kind of shape-shifting a bit, morphing into a different style, overall shape as it heads in. Really, really strange stuff going on with this scene. Here I'm just zooming in. This is my cursor from before. Like I said, I was taking screenshots of these things. But here's a weird little object behind it, and then it's diving into a bigger quote-unquote cloud. Now, what's important about those two objects are that we see like the tip of one and then the end maybe point of the other, and we go to the upper right-hand corner, and all of a sudden it was like arc welding. It was like this blast or bolt of something was going to come and connect with the tip of this other one. And that's what was causing the flashes. So this wasn't lightning coming from above like we used to see in decades past. This is local generation of what's supposed to be looking like lightning flashes, although all of them felt very artificial when they lit up. So here we see, this is a zooming in on this moment, where this lightning is zapping out of there, presumably going to arc weld style, come to that tip. Then we come down here, the lower left-hand corner. This was one of those moments where this kind of bolt comes out and was going to go to the tip of another one, but then there was also a not backlit. There was also an energized triangle happening too. Then the lower right-hand corner is catching where these two tips, it actually does kind of arc weld between the two. I'm just calling it arc welding. I don't know what else to call it. But it just absolutely connects these 2 points of whatever craft is to the left and the craft that's to the right. It's these two guys. So it's coming off of one end and making it to the tip of the other one. Really bizarre. This is just a zoom in on the one point that's sending out the bolt, and then yet there's a pure, lit up triangle. So I'm not really sure what's going on. This is the one tip, and that's the other tip of the other craft. I don't know what this is. I think this is the tip. I'm pretty sure that might be foliage. I'm not sure. But whatever the case, it is coming out of this one. And there was a pure, triangular lit up form. Alright, and then this got weird. So this is an inset of a zoom in and more progression enhancement on more enhancement on the photo. So the upper one is the original. So we've got this weird object sitting here. And then I saw like a hint of another object shooting a bolt down on this thing. So here we zoom in the lower right hand corner, and there it is. There's this little symmetrical object shooting. It looks like the source of the bolt is coming out of here and then coming down and splitting. Really, really weird. And then that thing just kind of like a floodlight style just flew away. Okay, then here's another one of the quote-unquote lightning flashes going off, and it's not a bolt or anything. It's just an overall illumination, like a lamp. But we start to see stuff getting backlit with structure. So here we start to see like these lines are parallel, weird little things. It's structure. Lower left, we see even more like these feet. It's a straight line. And then in the lower right-hand corner, we see those little feet again with like the blasts of light backlighting these objects. And then in the lower right, the inset is also showing. Now this is a symmetrical object in the backlight. So it looks like it has a hole in the back. And then, these are straight lines, symmetrical object happening right there. I'm trying to see. No, that's all I have to say about that one. Okay. Now this gets really weird. So in the upper left-hand corner was a flash starting to happen on the other, cloud mass over here. And then the other mass shooting off light was over here. So to the upper right-hand corner, in one of those backlit situations, again, we see a curved craft going that way and one going that way. And then we have this weird twisting of like tentacles almost, situation happening here. So we look, the lower right better shows that. Looks like a tentacle wrapping around something else. So really weird situation. These are straight lines too, so I think something massive is hiding over here. And then this is just with different color light to try to see things better. I think in the blue we see these twisted things much better, but over here we start to see that this is an object. I mean, you do see it here, but here you see even better because it's like a lighter color here and a darker color here. And we'll zoom in on that. So you see that object? So it looks like there's a hole, and then maybe we're looking at the bottom of a hole, or that is like a object in and of itself. It's hard to say. And here there's like tentacle things twisting around, really weird. I mean, that looks like an independent craft. I don't know what this thing is doing, but now it looks like a hole over here. Really, really weird. Alright, we'll leave that scene now, and this is just a little inset of the original, and this was just showing how strange this thing was. I don't know what's hiding in here. It looks like an object's kind of lifting off of it. If this is some kind of bigger ship or platform. And then look how skinny this thing is. There's a lot of little detail on these little ridges. And it looks like it just cuts through like a piece of plasma, a section of plasma, and pokes back out. Or this is some kind of craft that zoomed down and we're just seeing the top of the craft that's hiding the rest of this thing. But it's very long. Look at the tip of it even pops out over here. Alright, now we have, this just gets really interesting to look at the colors of what's going on. This is actually sunrise on the summer solstice 2021. And I just noticed this patch of a very different color, not like the rest of the sky. And with enhancement we start to see like a hole, a divot, a weird, really bright patch over here. And the lower left is the original is on the left and the enhanced is on the right. Look at this. This whole thing is self-illuminating. There's nothing else this color on this whole side of the sky. And there looks like a swath that comes in to meet it, you know, that's being held by this thing. It's really weird. Look on the right-hand side, you know. This otherworldly light is coming in, and it's almost like this other thing is catching it or embracing it, like trying to catch a moonbeam. And then we have these darker things coming around. It's just really, really wild. We start to see some rippled texture there. I would love to know what the heck this scene was. It must be significant because it happened on the summer solstice, and I've never seen anything quite like this in all of my, 6 years or so of sky watching and telling. Okay, upper left-hand corner, we just see some weird texture and patterning. Again, the weird color, like why is this just red over here at 8.1? And why is this white? It looks like a bigger sphere, something happening here with like craters. Then on the right-hand side, upper right, this was weird. We were driving on the highway, and I'm like, I told the passenger, please take a picture of this, because I was driving. I mean, this just was really low, and I saw this just dump out like a directed hose. And I just never, ever have seen a cloud like this in South Florida do rain like that. To me, there's Cloaking craft up there kind of making a joke. Lower left-hand corner, what is this? This is called Backlit and Bold Sky Show. Look at the shape of this thing, the way it curves up, like a little tendril. And then this is some kind of object and another object, I think. Very weird stuff. This is just a profile of a cloud and then weird little things kind of coming out of it. In this scene, upper left is the original, upper right's enhanced. Just gives you an idea. You look at an overall scene and you don't quite know what's there unless you do some enhancements sometimes. Here we've got like a raspberry color, burnout white, gold in the back, blue, white, and an otherworldly cyan coming in. Really weird scene. So I gotta say that's some kind of craft cloaking in a really interesting way. I mean, look at this. This is even like a rectangular shape and on top of a triangle. Just really wild stuff happening here. The lower left-hand corner, I invite you just to go look at that show because it's good to see the original versus this thing. A lot of weird stuff happening, like look at the shapes of these clouds and what they're doing. It just doesn't even make sense. That's why I just said, what? It doesn't make sense what I'm seeing. And here this thing's going, these are buildings in the background, by the way, and this thing is all really low, and it was like coming up, and this little thing's flying across. I mean, that was really pretty crazy. I haven't seen clouds shaped like that, like ever since that time. And there's like weird things poking out of this bigger mass, so I know it's Cloaking craft all over the place. Lower right-hand corner, again, I saw my first triangle, so I'm like, well, here we go. There's going to be Cloaking craft everywhere. There's a triangle where I'm pointing, also here, and a bigger imprint of one here. All right, upper left-hand corner, I started to make out a shape to the naked eye. Go to the right with some enhancement, you see it even better. Weird stuff happening down here below, so actually, this is like that big tree and gives you a sense that this is really big in scale. And then there's stuff happening off at the horizon that's weird. And we got a triangular point coming right out of this thing. So we're talking Cloaking craft. Down below, it's a zoom in on this element over here. you can't have like a pillar and a tabletop like on the top and call that natural cloud. Even looks like there's some little craft zooming in, you know, in this way, like you see the trajectory of the vapor trail. Lower left-hand corner, original to the left, enhanced to the right. Again, perfect little triangle sitting there. All right, upper left-hand corner, strange shaped clouds and weird things happening coming across horizontal. So we look to the upper right-hand corner, we see the scene a little bit more. There's like a spike, like a stick-like thing happening over here, a little stick punching out of here. Stick punching out of here, so that tells me we're dealing with machine parts here as well. That's all Cloak and Craft. Oh, down below here is the scene I was showing you before. I told you to go see the show. What? Okay, so left-hand side is the original. Like, what the heck is happening here, right? With all the different cloud directions. Then with some mild enhancement, here we go. I mean, come on. Pretty wild scene. And then to the right, you know, is the photo that we had before. Okay, this one's really exciting. This is one of the most unusual ways to illuminate. I don't know. This is, to me, has got to be a much higher dimensional being, you know, coming in and creating this. So the upper left is the original, and the right's enhanced. And it just, to me, looks like a big, massive koi fish coming in, and that's the mouth. But this thing is just so cool. Because look at the left, you don't really get a sense of what's going on. But with the enhancement, you just really see this ethereal light that we can't detect with the human eye so well. And not as well as the camera can pick it up. And look at it, it's like interdimensional. It's like coming in overlaid over whatever's going on in the back. The lower two, just illustrated again, just in horizontal format, how it's coming in. Just pretty wild. It felt really magical too, the whole sky. Okay, this is interesting. The upper left to the right is the enhanced. Looks like a little old-fashioned torpedo shape zooming along. And we've got other solid objects parading around in this mass here. Lower left, something was telling me something's going on in here. I see like reflecting things almost. But when I put the enhancement, what really jumped out is this thing. It looks like the end of a piece of a log. Looks like wood. I think that's a little pipe end over here to the left. See what you see in that scene. Okay, upper left-hand corner. This was really low in the sky over the roof lines. But it looked like it had a little force field happening in front of it. So with enhancement, I couldn't get it too much more. But I do know that's not natural cloud, and this has to be some type of Cloak and Craft in here in the top. Lower left, it was just strange the way the movement of this whole thing was. And mainly, you know, lower left is the original. This looks like the bow of a huge ship. You know, it's symmetrical. And then you still see it here, you know, like backlit. Lower right-hand corner, this thing called Skies Rising. This thing, literally, I watched it. I was standing outside doing yard work, and I just watched this thing erupt out of nowhere, just, you know, a few blocks away in a suburban Miami. And yet it comes out of nowhere, just bursts up. So to me, that's quite a phenomenon. I don't know who or how they do it. But like here at the top of this little cloud puff is like, that's a hardened craft, Cloak and Craft. I think one is like flying up out of here. One's flying off here at that little illuminated point, and one's flying off of here. Really, really bizarre. It's like a tower of stuff that they're just like shooting out Cloak and Craft everywhere. Okay, here's looks like the big bow of a ship. So it looks like the top deck here, and we're just seeing the outline of it emerging out of the cloud. So see to the right, that still looks like the bow of a ship to me, like a conventional ship. And then here it is again. We've got like stick-like elements starting to poke up out of this whole thing. And again, that's like the rim of this thing. And there's some kind of object, you know, like looks like a tube across here. Just really wild stuff. Okay, this is like a little craft sitting on a platform or a bigger cloud. We go up to the upper right-hand corner. This looks like, yeah, just some kind of craft parked or docked on top of a bigger craft, you know, and maybe one like behind it. Lower left, what was really weird is the color. This was south and to the east, but it was sunset. And so it was really glowing a very different color. So with enhancement, we just see the wild color. And then also that there's a straight line moving across and like a triangular shaped clouds in the foreground. So again, this looks like lines happening on the deck on the top of a ship. So I think this is one big ship. All right, upper left-hand corner, more of that like strange tower-like element, a similar version. I mean, it really looks like almost like a piece of coral coming up out of the ocean. But again, we've got a perfect triangular shape, you know, craft zooming in with vapor trails. And I mean, this is almost like a platform, and stuff can come and go out of this thing. Upper right hand corner, the title page of this title cover, title slide, is called Curious Sky. This thing, you might want to look around in that show. This thing's just really weird all over the place. You know, it's almost like there's a triangular craft or two parked on this little thing, maybe a temporary platform. But look at this thing, it's like a cross. You know, this goes this way, and it definitely, you know, another piece comes perpendicular across from it. What do you think is happening here? Okay, lower left-hand corner is the original, lower right is the enhanced version. We have all different colors, signatures all over the place, but the overall feature is straight lines on this kind of cut out of a triangle. Here we're zooming in on that piece I was just telling you about. Look at this, it feels metal. It feels like a molten metal, almost like an ancient sword or something forged. It's got depth to it. Look at the straight edges. These are some kind of machine parts. See what you see. Alright, upper left is original, upper right is enhanced, color signatures, independent little objects, something with motion this way, something with motion that way, little canister off to the side, a sphere over here, or a circle, little independent shapes, you know, with geometry to them. This tells me this is, you know, one massive craft with a lot of little craft around it, cloaking craft. Okay, lower left-hand corner, this kind of glow caught my attention. So with enhancement, you know, we see there's some type of object with independent illumination happening here. Lower right-hand corner, again, something I could detect. The more you see and do this every day and studying the sky, you start to detect with the naked eye different color changes and signatures. So I knew when I did the enhancement on the lower right-hand corner, it was going to pop like this, like with a reddish color in the back. So look at this. There's a hole here. There's lots of, you know, strange parallel lines. Have a look on that in here on your own time. Okay, this is called Lavender Sky Panther. The cover's 2. I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the show. So this is just after the first 100 shows. Some of what I thought are my own self-dubbed kind of prize-winning covers. And I think that's it. I think we'll end on this. Yeah. So that's the end of part 2. I have no idea what the running time on this is. We'll see when I hit the end of it. But again, thank you for showing up here a while. And this also kind of springboards us into the next shows that will be coming up, where I have the theory of where, not even more than a theory, I have evidence where some of these rainbows are being created by Cloaking Craft, because you see where they end and what they die into, and you see a geometrical shape. So this is a nice little reminder that we might start to see those coming up in my next recap shows. So again, thanks for being here. As always, I wish you tremendous peace and love. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.